Okie day. So, Blacktail is an indie game developed by Parasight, who are a little Polish indie company, with Blacktail actually being their first game. Now, with it being an indie game, it's quite a lot harder for me to get facts about the game's development period. I mean, just look at the game's Wikipedia page. That shit is tiny. But from what I can find, it's pretty safe to assume that the game started development shortly after the studio was founded, only in October 2019. Lovely timing. Now, the game had its first reveal almost a year later, or a bit over a year later, in June 21, in the Summer Games Fest. And here it seems to have garnered mainly a positive reception and a decent amount of impressions for the studio's first game. And I would say this is due to the fact that even in its early state, the game looked pretty damn good for an indie game, probably allowing it to, reach a larger audience who don't really care about a retro indie game. But anyway, it seems they're on a bit of a roll, as only 2 months after this reveal, they announced the game's full story was playable, or at least the main story. And this was all before the studio had even turned 2 years old, so a pretty good run up, and all during COVID, so hurrah. But now, up until this point, the developers were kind of doing this solo without any big backers, and maybe due to the fact that the game was getting pretty good attention and reception, in the first quarter of 22, the studio received financial backing from Tencent, who are a pretty fucking big company, like $400 billion or something, and now they have stakes in massive games like, COD, Fortnite, but I'm pretty sure they're mainly in the mobile gaming scene where, they're absolutely massive. And Parasite also found a publisher in Focus Entertainment, who are an established publisher. They've been around for quite a while. They've recently released games like Greedfall, Plague Tale series, and a shit ton of the latest farming simulator games. Now, this backing would allow Parasite to probably increase the scope of their open world in Blacktail, which I would say was demonstrated in the official trailer, which came out in November. We're in 2023. I hate life. Okay, in November 22, which showed off it was a nice, colourful world, and it seemed to be heavily inspired by Slavic lore, which haven't seen much of. Probably The Witcher is the main Slavic game I know of. But anyway, the plot follows a little outcasted child who's been accused of witchery, so yeah, and we follow her as she looks for her lost sister and also tries to discover what's happened to children missing from the village. And now throw in a morality system, which the developer said was quite important, some interesting looking combat from the trailers, and it was enough to put the game on my radar, at least, as it was released the month later in December. Now, releasing at only £25, which, it's on the high end of indie games, normally like £5 to £15, but it's still less than half the price of a AAA game. What are they, like £70 now? £75? No idea. But anyway, the game got a pretty good reception, I'd say. It got very positive on Steam, over a few hundred reviews, with slightly lower but still positive 7.4 and 78 on Metacritic. And it got estimated that it's around 2,000 sales on the first day, with over 16,000 sales when recording this, which is the 12th of January. So that's around 320,000 revenue in less than a month. I couldn't find what the estimated budget of this game was, so I'm not entirely sure what they're looking for, but 320,000 in less than a month, if it keeps going like that, I would say this will be a win for the studio. But anyway, enough ranting, and let's get on with the gameplay. So we start the game in a small little tutorial area where it just teaches basic movement, shows off some crafting mechanics and combat. Now, none of this is really complicated. Crafting is just gathering materials to make arrows. There's some power shots with the bow, and you can dash. Simple stuff. Then after this, we get the first story beat, and we learn that we're looking for our sister Zora, who's gone missing. and we're also introduced to the voice, who kind of acts as the main character, Yaga's inner voice, and they just they have some nice banter throughout the game. I enjoy it. But anyway, now as I'm coming into a little clearing still in the tutorial area, I'm shown that this game has some pretty damn nice graphics. I mean, it goes for a nice colourful, vibrant style, so not the most realistic, but I think this matches with the main character's naivety, and the game kind of plays it off as like a fairy tale. And I prefer this a lot more than the game trying to make it realistic, as an indie game where money is limited, that might not work, whereas here they can make it cheaper and still pretty damn good to look at. Now anyway, after wandering about for a bit, I run into a spirit who I chase down, and it leads me to a transparent hut, which is going to act as the base for the game. It's normal base stuff. It's got some areas for collectibles. It allows you to upgrade your skills, which the game has quite a nice skill tree, but I'll explain later about it. And it also allows for some story progression in the hut. Now, Yaga has a mask throughout the game, and whenever you take it off during like cutscenes, a cool little hand-drawn low frame rate video will play. Now this is nothing important. It's just like a nice little feature which adds some character. These are things that I like about indie games, which you don't always get in AAA games. The adventurousness to just try something, see if it works.
Finally, I can feel something.
But anyway, now we follow the spirit some more, and it gets to a broken bridge, so we're gonna have to fix that. And to do that, we gotta be introduced to the NPCs of the game. And the first one is a pack of mushrooms. Now, I never actually came across any human NPCs in the game, only like mushrooms and bugs, but that kind of just leads more into the fairy tale aspect of the open world, so it's fine with me. Now, these mushrooms here offer to fix the bridge for me if I can help them kill a dragon which has been annoying them. So we have to agree. Now, after exploring for a bit, I make it to the dragon's cave and eventually meet him. Now, this dragon turns out not to be a dragon, but just a really fucking fat imp who's eaten too much honey. And this acts as, the first boss battle of the game. I mean, it's pretty simple. It's just covering behind objects when it attacks, and then during its respites, going out and shooting it a bunch, then rinse and repeat for a bit. There's it's normal stuff like its abilities getting upgraded as it goes lower in health, but it's fairly easy. And after defeating it and killing the fake dragon, the mushrooms hold up their end of the bargain and fix me the bridge, which just allows me to continue chasing Spirit. Now, after doing that for a bit more, exploring the open world, I get to the end of the Spirit's trail, and it leads me to a doll, which apparently looks like the Spirit, who it turns out is, one of the several dead kids, or missing kids, who we now learn are probably all dead. And after touching the doll, we see the kids' death, as they are killed by the kind of main villain of the game, Baba Yaga, who's, a big fucking tentacle monster. But after that, we have to fight the Spirit, which kind of involves just shooting it a bit until it summons like a really large tree, and then we have to shoot the tree. So yeah, it's pretty easy. And I mean, after it, you get a little cutscene which just moves the story a bit forward and explains the dead kid's relationship to Yaga and her sister. But anyway, after that you get a nice little 2D side scroller, which I thought was nice. It had some nice character beats and merits, but unfortunately it was quite buggy. it often like glitched, and I mean I even got fucking hard locked one time and I had to just restart from my last save. And now that ends the first part of the game. Spring, and moves us on to summer, the second part. Now the objective in summer is basically the same. We're chasing a different child spirit now, the second of the 3 dead kids, and this eventually sends us across an upside down bridge, which was a really nice visual to play with, and something I don't really think I've seen before. I mean, just have a look at the screen, it looks fucking lovely. But anyway, now after getting past this upside down bridge, it ends, the exact same way as the last chapter, defeating a spirit by, shooting them a bunch and shooting their big fuck off tree. And, after that, it's another cutscene explaining the dead kid and moving the story forward, followed by another platformer with some more character beats. And yeah, that's that's kind of, that's the end of the second part of the game. Now, I mean, I don't think this game was very, very promising for an indie studio. I mean, it took me these 3 hours to beat the first 2 chapters. I looked it up and there's 5 of them in total. So the main story is probably 7 to 8 hours long if they follow the same length. Now, I will say the second chapter was a lot shorter for me because, I barely touched the open world. I didn't touch it whatsoever. And I know that the open world was a big part in upgrading your skills and weapons. And also there was lots of side quests and NPCs which I didn't even bother interacting with. And it's also just pretty nice to look at. So I did miss out on a large part of this game, which I don't think I'm going to go back and play it. But if I was playing without recording all this gameplay, I would have had some more fun with it. But anyway, I'll say that the combat can become repetitive, especially just because it's a bow, but that might be due to the fact that I never upgraded it whatsoever. And the main objective was a carbon copy of the first chapter for the second chapter, and also the morality system ended up just kind of being pick the good or bad option with a 10-second timer, so not really what the developers said it would be when they were saying it was going to be a really integral part of the game. But I didn't really care about it when playing, though, due to the fact that the writing and the competent story was nice. The voice acting between Yaga and the voice was, it was very nice to see, and the banter was fun. And it was also pretty intriguing to learn the backstory of Yaga's village, especially mixed in with the Slavic mythology. So, it's a good game, has its flaws, but I would say its strengths outweigh them.